change their appearance, 15. Do they kill, torture, mutilate, 13? If they don't change their appearance, only 1 of 8 kills, torture, mutilate. The key is in the red zone. If they change their appearance, 12 of 13, that's 90%, kill, torture, mutilate. And that's the power of anonymity. So what are the 7 social processes that grease the slippery slope of evil? Mindlessly taking the first small step. Dehumanization of others. De-individuation of self. Diffusion of personal responsibility. Blind obedience to authority. Uncritical conformity to group norms. Passive tolerance of evil through inaction or indifference. And it happens when you're in a new or unfamiliar situation. Your habitual response patterns don't work. Your personality and morality are disengaged. Nothing is easier than to denounce the evildoer. Nothing more difficult than understanding him, Dostoevsky tells us. Understanding is not excusing. Psychology is not excusiology. So social psychological research reveals how ordinary good people can be transformed without the drugs. You don't need it. You just need the social psychological processes. Real-world parallels. Compare this with this. James Schlesinger, and I'm going to have to end with this, says, psychologists have attempted to understand how and why individuals and groups who usually act humanely can sometimes act otherwise in certain circumstances. That's the Lucifer effect. And he goes on to say, the landmark Stanford study provides a cautionary tale for all military operations. If you give people power without oversight, it's a prescription for abuse. They knew that and let that happen. So another report, investigative report by General Fay, says the system is guilty. And in this report he says it was the environment created Abu Ghraib by leadership failures that contributed to the occurrence of such abuse. And the fact that it remained undiscovered by higher authorities for a long period of time. Those abuses went on for 3 months. Who was watching the store? The answer is nobody. And I think nobody on purpose. You gave the guards permission to do those things and they knew nobody was ever going to come down to that dungeon. So you need a paradigm shift in all of these areas. The shift is away from the medical model that focuses only on the individual. And the shift is toward a public health model that recognizes situational and systemic vectors of disease. Bullying is a disease. Prejudice is a disease. Violence is a disease. And since the Inquisition, we've been dealing with problems at the individual level. And you know what? It doesn't work. Alexander Solzhenitsyn says the line between good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. That means that line is not out there. That's a decision that you have to make. That's a personal thing. So I want to end very quickly on a positive note. Heroism as the antidote to evil. By promoting the heroic imagination, especially in our kids, in our educational system, we want kids to think, I'm a hero in waiting for the right situation to come along, and I will act heroically. My whole life is now going to focus away from evil that I've been in since I was a kid to understanding heroes. The banality of heroism is it's ordinary people who do heroic deeds. It's the counterpoint to Hannah Arendt's banality of evil. Our traditional societal heroes are wrong because they are the exception. They organize their whole life around this. That's why we know their names. And our kids' heroes are also wrong models for them because they have supernatural talents. We want our kids to realize most heroes are everyday people. And the heroic act is unusual. This is Joe Darby. He was the one that stopped those abuses you saw because when he saw those images, he turned them over to a senior investigating officer. He was a low-level private, and that stopped it. Was he a hero? No. They had to put him in hiding because people wanted to kill him and then his mother and his wife. For 3 years, they were in hiding. This is the woman who stopped the Stanford prison study. When I said it got out of control, I was a prison superintendent. I didn't notice out of control. I was totally indifferent. She came down, saw that madhouse, and said, you know what? It's terrible what you're doing to those boys. They're not prisoners, they're not guards, they're boys, and you are responsible. And I ended the study the next day. The good news is I married her the next year. I just came to my senses, obviously. So situations have the power to do the same, but the point is, it's the same situation that can inflame the hostile imagination in some of us that makes us perpetrators of evil, can inspire the heroic imagination in others. It's the same situation, and you're on one side or the other. Most people are guilty of the evil of inaction because your mother says, don't get involved, mind your own business. And you have to say, Mama, humanity is my business. So the psychology of heroism is, we're going to end in a moment, how do we encourage children in new hero courses that I'm working with Matt Langdon, he has a hero workshop, to develop this heroic imagination, this self-labeling, I am a hero in waiting, and teach them skills. To be a hero, you have to learn to be a deviant, because you're always going against the conformity of the group. The point is, are we ready to take the path to celebrating ordinary heroes waiting for the right situation to come along to put heroic imagination into action. Because it may only happen once in your life. When you pass it by, you'll always know, I could have been a hero, and I let it pass me by. So the point is thinking it and then doing it. So I want to thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's oppose the power of evil systems at home and abroad. And let's focus on the positive. Advocate for respect of personal dignity, for justice and peace, which sadly our administration has not been doing. Thanks so much.
Now, that was an edited version of a longer presentation. It was actually a visual presentation. I edited it down for the purposes of an audio presentation. Now, I certainly didn't agree with everything that Zimbardo said in the entire presentation, but when I was watching it, one line jumped out at me. Maybe you caught it too.
If you give people power without oversight, it's a prescription for abuse.
And that is our world. In this choose-your-own adventure book of conspiratorial history, today on the show, we have pursued just one narrow path, from German idealism to the rise of Marxism to Fabianism. But if you look at the broader picture, you do not see one straight line, beginning, middle, and end, or even one arc, rising action to conclusion. The big picture would look more like a spider web. And these kinds of conspiracies, these kinds of plans for global domination have been attached to all kinds of groups, certainly since the development of the internet, but really going back centuries. And you know the groups I'm talking about. And sometimes it might be instructive to understand who some of these people are, the groups, the connections. It might be helpful to understand the impact of the Fabian Society, this small, at first somewhat secretive group, in England at the end of the 1800s, and how that influenced the thought of intellectuals in that country into the 20th century, people like Cecil Rhodes. But you don't do it with context, you don't look at that stuff within the larger picture of ideas and motivations, you're giving yourself a public school education on your own. As far as usefulness is concerned, it translates into you sitting in front of the YouTube watching Building 7 implode over and over and over again. It has no purpose. At the beginning of the American Way video, I talked about my experience as a student and a teacher going through these history textbooks, and everything was just this disconnected collage of names and dates and acausality, and you're just left with confusion and noise. It doesn't matter who runs the world, or if there even is some secretive group, or a handful of individuals who have that kind of power. What matters is the ideas and the motivations. It's very disempowering to look at some ominous, secretive, new world order global conspiracy as an organization or personalities. It's a corruption. It's ideas. And it's very empowering to be able to identify those ideas and argue against them. But if we focus, again, on organizations and personalities, countries, leaders, we miss the point. In government school, we're taught that the winners of World War II is personalities like FDR, Harry Truman, and the losers are Adolf Hitler, Benito Mussolini. Did socialism lose, though? Did totalitarianism lose? Did collectivism lose in that war? Let me play that line one more time.
If you give people power without oversight, it's a prescription for abuse.
So what is this oversight? What the world has been missing, that power has been without for really thousands of years. Well, I hope to some extent in this show, a long time ago in this show, we explain the origins of the acceptance of these imbalanced, non-voluntary relationships in our lives. And that has served as a very dangerous template for a very, very long time. regardless of place, culture, any of those factors. The oversight that almost throughout all of human history has been entirely absent is reason and some sort of objective standard of ethics. When this oversight does not exist, and power is embraced, power is accepted, power is relied upon, well, there are no objective rules, there are no objective guidelines. The rules, the laws, the quote-unquote truth is whatever is expedient, whatever is convenient, whatever is beneficial for those who have the power. What should be the anchor or the foundation or at the center, depending on what kind of visual you want to form in your head, of society should be conclusions and truths built from reason and evidence, like the non-aggression principle. What's there instead is authority. In human history in the past, there have been a few glimmers of hope. Ancient Greece, the Age of Reason, objectivism. But they all come to be against this backdrop of a widespread acceptance of non-voluntary relationships, an acceptance of power, which is why up until this point anyway, they have always been either ignored or crushed. All of that being said, I think at this point, the stage is set for the 20th century in Germany and beyond. Thank you for listening. To be continued.
Guest, Mr. Aldous Huxley, renowned essayist and novelist who, during the spring semester, is residing at the university in his capacity as a Ford Research Professor. Mr. Huxley has recently returned from a conference at the Institute for the Study of Democratic Institutions in Santa Barbara, where the discussion focused on the development of new techniques by which to control and direct human behavior. Traditionally, it has been possible to suppress individual freedom through the application of physical coercion, through the appeal of ideologies, through the manipulation of man's physical and social environment, and more recently through the cruder techniques of psychological conditioning. The ultimate revolution about which Mr. Huxley will speak today concerns itself with the development of new behavioral controls which operate directly upon the psychophysiological organisms of man. That is, the capacity to replace external constraints by internal compulsion. As those of us who are familiar with Mr. Huxley's work well know, this is a subject with which he has been concerned for quite a period of time. Mr. Huxley will make a presentation of approximately half an hour, followed by some brief discussions and questions by the two panelists sitting to my left, Ms. Lillian Rivlin and Mr. John Post. Mr. Huxley.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that the conference at Santa Barbara was not directly concerned with the control of the mind. That was a conference, there have been two of them now at the University of California Medical Center in San Francisco, one this year, which I didn't attend, and one 2 years ago, where there was a considerable discussion on this subject. At Santa Barbara, we were talking about technology in general and the effects it's likely to have on society and the problems related to technological transplanting of technology into underdeveloped countries. Well, now, in regard to this problem of the ultimate revolution, this has been very well summed up by the moderator. In the past, we can say that all revolutions have essentially aimed at changing the environment in order to change the individual. I mean, there's been the political revolution, the economic revolution, in the time of the Reformation, the religious revolution, all these aimed, as I say, not directly at the human being, but at his surroundings,